Okay, hello friends. An update from the offices of Kirby Russia here about the war. As you know, anytime some major change happens in the war, we talk about it here, as it is at the epicenter of the Russian attention. Basically, all eyes of Russia have been on this situation for even a decade before the war started. But that's a different story for a different day. Today, I want to talk to you that the war has changed due to two deficits, as they would call them, using Soviet terminology, or two lacks that the Kiev regime has encountered. Number one is a lack of manpower, and number two is a lack of financing. So the easier one to discuss is number two, is that unless there's some back channel, off the grid, if you will, maneuvers being made to keep money being funneled in from some source that has access to the U.S. taxpayer base or the European Union taxpayer base to Kiev, they've essentially run out of sources of income. They're really not getting the funding that they need to keep things going. We've mentioned on the channel before that it looks like for 2024 they're at minus $42 billion. Note, I said dollars, not the local currency. That is a crazy amount of money for a country that's at minus 30% GDP, where, you know, in 1991 there were nearly 50 some million people there. Now they're down to like 20 or less and declining. They're in a bad shape. They're in a really bad shape economically, and war, in a lot of ways, at least modern war, is a real reflection of economy. Then again, ancient war was too. The Romans definitely had a much bigger economy than a lot of their competitors, and boy did that help, especially in terms of equipment, even if that equipment was made the hard way. So, but anyways, on the economic side, the war is going to be changing, because without this continuous flow of resources, without a continuous flow of machinery, they really can't fight the war. The question is, if they're still being able to be somehow in some sort of minor way being funded, can the state survive? That's the big question, because I think somehow they're still getting something. We see in the news where the talk that used to be a talk of billions is now a talk of weird little bits of millions here and there, which may be able to sort of prop the government up, but not do much else. Eventually, they're going to come to the sort of collapse point. We've also seen a lot of videos from the front that are very depressing about, let's just say, the quality or lack thereof of food and resources given to the soldiers. And it looks like if that was a few months ago, we can only imagine how dire things are. There's essentially really nothing left to give. And the question is, so when does the breaking point economically come? Again, if Washington and friends, the collective West, as people rather astutely call them, are able to at least give the Kiev blokes enough funds to sort of keep the lights on, as it were, then this could keep going for a really long time. As long as some kind of sort of government can stay afloat, it'll keep going. But as soon as everyone stops getting paid, this war is going to come to an end very quickly. Now, on the lack of human manpower side, we've seen some rumors, and I remind you that with the summer counteroffensive, Kiev made a big media spectacle about this, and they told the world, including the Russians, and everyone who was willing to listen, exactly what their plans were, and they pretty much executed those exact same plans that they said that they were going to do. Okay, that's important to keep this in mind, because supposedly now they're going to shift towards some sort of defensive posture to try to grind the Russians down. Okay, well, first off, a lot of the troops who are more trained are sadly not alive, or they've given up, or they're too injured to fight, various different options. So I can see that they're kind of maybe strategizing that, look, if we don't have the competence and ability to attack, then we can use our men sort of like a human minefield, where the Russians will have to go from sort of trench to trench to bunker to clean them out. And, well, you don't come to this channel for the most brilliant military mind that's ever existed in history. You come here for interesting information about Russia. So we should take my musings about the way modern warfare works with a little bit of a grain of salt. This is sort of that armchair quarterback talking to you. But if your enemy tells you that we're basically have a lack of manpower and musicians. Well, there were musicians in this war in a sense. Munitions. If we have a lack of manpower and munitions, then we're just going to try to just sit and use our men like a human minefield. Then that kind of then leads me to think, if I was on the Russian general staff, to be like, okay, if they're really going to do that, then we have to pick some of the more beneficial, shallower parts of this minefield. Because remember, I use the expression minefield because at least as of 2023, mines don't move. But who knows? With future technology and the affordability of like little drones and stuff, maybe they will start moving. But anyways, we'll say it's a stationary minefield. I would try to think, where are some of the weaker points in this minefield line where we could really actually safely sort of focus our efforts and try to breach through it. You know what I mean? And the difference between a human minefield and a traditional minefield is a traditional minefield doesn't need to eat. So if you think about it, there's definitely a lot of places where if they could sort of somewhat safely breach through, then they can easily surround. Because again, if you tell your opponent that the overall order is going to be to just sit there and fight to the last man, that certainly gives basically all the initiative in terms of movement to your opponent. And I would take that I would take advantage of that, especially if you even think about it. If really the order is going to come in that we can't move and we're going to have to hold, you guys have to remember that the defensive, or the front as it is today, there's still a lot of Russian and Belarusian territory that touches Ukraine that really isn't part of that front. You know, the front kind of goes along like a big crescent moon. Well, at the top of that, there's plenty of places that Russian forces could theoretically attack from. So maybe this might be the time for the grand flanking strategy that everyone thought would happen but never really did. I don't know. But we can say that overall, at this point in time, that Kiev is really in the position of lacking two things. They're lacking the financial and resource support that they were getting from the West. That seems to have gone from a flowing stream to a mere trickle. So they lack that, and unfortunately, they really lack manpower. Unfortunately, from the standpoint of the value of human life. So that is the new sort of turn in the war, and that's going to affect the strategy going forward. Oh, and point maybe number 2.5, it's not a lack. Well, it's a little bit of a lack of brains, that if they really are going to do the strategy of just sit there, try to grind the Russians down and do nothing, and they're really going to do that strategy, they're going to do it exactly as they said, then they definitely, again, have this sort of lack of brains, because why would you tell your opponent exactly what you're going to do? It really didn't work out for them well in summer. That philosophical outlook on war may have gotten multiple hundreds of thousands of men killed. I don't think that's the best way to do things, but that's me. I've never been a general. So anyways, guys, Tim Kirby Russia, the war is changing right in front of our faces. Remember, if you like this video, like it, share it, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And the home of Tim Kirby Russia is on Telegram. You can find it there real easy. Anyways, good evening, friends, and have a fantastic day tomorrow.